When you think of a shark, what comes to mind? Razor-sharp teeth. The ocean's ultimate apex predator, ready to attack, triggered by the smallest drop of blood in the water. We've been told sharks are killers, the monsters of the ocean. They're without a doubt one of the most feared animals on the planet. But the truth is nothing like that. In fact, everything you've been told about sharks is a lie. Out of 8 billion people on Earth, only 5 to 10 die from shark attacks each year. Statistically, the odds of being killed by a shark are roughly 1 in 4 million. That means you're more likely to be struck by lightning, crushed by a vending machine, or, even more absurdly, killed by a falling coconut. Even cows, those seemingly gentle animals, are statistically more deadly than sharks, which makes our fear seems almost irrational. But if sharks are actually so unlikely to harm us, why are so many people terrified of them? The answer is pretty simple. For decades we've accepted a story without ever asking if it is even true. You see, as human beings, we have the tendency to villainize the things we don't understand. And in this case, a shark is a pretty weird looking creature with sharp teeth that feels quite abstract and terrifying to most people. I totally get that. But it couldn't be further from the truth. Humanity has always been obsessed with monsters. Some, like Bigfoot, are obviously completely fictional. But others, like sharks, are real animals that have been twisted into villains. And this idea became so deeply rooted that we barely question it anymore. It all began in the 1970s when Hollywood decided to turn sharks into the ultimate symbol of terror.
A mindless eating machine. It will attack and devour anything.
A shark? We've got a panic on our hands on the 4th of July.
This kicked off an entire industry, and over the decades, countless of shark movies were made, solidifying this image of mindless killers. As a result, the media jumped on the bandwagon and started blowing every rare encounter completely out of proportion.
A shark attacked 4 people near South Padre Island.
Killed by a shark at a tourist spot.
Shark attack.
Shark attack.
Shark attack.
We've been sold a very one-sided story for many years, and people now genuinely believe in it. It even has an official term. Galleophobia describes the irrational fear of sharks that is deeply ingrained in the minds of people and shaped by all of the stories and headlines. It's a fear that is so powerful that even in completely safe environments, like standing behind glass at an aquarium or being above water, many people still feel uneasy. But it gets much darker.
Yeah, there's just something about sharks too. You're throwing yourself into the world of a super predator.
This manufactured fear is affecting the balance of the ocean, wiping out species every year and effectively destroying an important source of oxygen for the planet. Now, when I first researched all of this, I was a little bit confused because so much information kind of went against my own common belief. And that is why I wanted to see sharks in the wild for myself and talk to people who actually understand the species. So I traveled to an island which is famous for scuba diving and one of the best places to see sharks in their natural habitat. Just made it to the island, and apparently this place issues the most scuba licenses in the whole entire world, and it is known for sharks, so you would expect constant attacks in a place like this, right? So I started by asking local dive masters, people who spend hundreds of hours in the water and have seen sharks up close, and their perspective really surprised me. Are sharks dangerous?
No, they're beautiful animals.
No.
Not at all.
No, they are not.
No, they are not dangerous.
I don't think so, they're cute. Are sharks dangerous?
No. Humans are dangerous.
No, they are smart.
No, I don't think so.
No, they are not. We love them.
Not at all. I think they're just living their life down there.
Nah, not really. Not really. We are more dangerous than sharks.
None of the dive masters seemed even remotely scared of sharks. In fact, they had a lot of respect for this animal and they saw them in a completely different light. And that left me even more curious. So I decided to explore the reefs around the island, hoping to see one for myself. And spoiler alert, it turned out to be pretty difficult. I learned that sharks usually stay in deeper waters, far from the shore, so I assumed going on a scuba boat would be my best chance of seeing one. But finding a shark in the wild was like way harder than I expected. It turns out larger boats are just way too noisy for them. I decided to go a bit more low-key and I tried snorkeling and freediving around the island instead. I spent a couple of days searching, even went to a place called Shark Bay, and in the end I saw all kinds of things, but not a single shark. And after a couple of days of trying, I found something that I didn't expect at all. I didn't see one shark. In fact, I saw half a dozen of them. But every time I tried to get closer to them, they swam away from me. So for a group of apex predators that even outnumbered the swimmers in the water, they were surprisingly shy and in fact wanted to have nothing to do with me. That made me wonder that maybe the real predator isn't who I thought it was. Shark attacks seem to be incredibly rare. In fact, they are more likely to avoid you rather than confront you. So it came as a surprise to me that some species, like the hammerhead shark, have never harmed a single person in recorded history. Like never ever. Can you believe that? And that almost made me think that sharks might actually be more afraid of us than we are of them. Which sounds really weird. When shark attacks happen, they're almost always a case of mistaken identity rather than a human being being the actual prey species. You see, if a shark attacks, it often involves surfers, and there's a simple reason for that. Sharks have very limited color vision and perceive distances in a very different way. So from below, a surfer on a board looks quite similar to the outline of a seal. So when a shark bites a surfboard, it means basically it mistook the surfer for something else.
Like, seriously, like to walk away from that, I'm just so stoked. And oh man.
Now once they realize their mistake, they tend to lose interest and they simply swim away. But what happens if sharks are pulled outside of their natural behavior and are placed in artificial, human-controlled scenarios? Now, you've probably seen those viral videos like a great white shark leaping out of the water to snatch a chunk of meat, or one smashing into a cage while divers are panicking inside.
This cage is specifically built with bars on every side except the front, which is all plexiglass. So when I jump in there and float out 30, 40 yards, I'm gonna look like an easy target for these sharks.
These moments are super intense, but they're also highly misleading. You see, shark cage tourism creates very unnatural behavior. It's like dangling a steak in front of a lion and then acting surprised when it reacts aggressively. In reality, you have almost zero chance of encountering a great white or bull shark in the wild. They prefer deeper waters, far away from humans. And if you do see one, they won't even recognize you as prey. Most of the time, they'll simply ignore you. If you look at professionals interacting with the same species in a more natural way, you'll instantly see that even a huge great white shark is in fact very intelligent and no harm to humans. The real enemy, an actual predator, looks far different and is not who you expected at all. Now here's a number that will shock you. Remember, sharks kill only 5 to 10 people a year. But meanwhile, humans are responsible for over 100 million dead sharks annually. Let me repeat that. 100 million. That's about 3 sharks every second. And things unfortunately get a lot darker from here. It's pretty ironic because sharks have been around for 400 million years, surviving mass extinctions and outliving even the dinosaurs. But just in the last 50 years, we managed to mess up almost everything. In only 5 decades, their population has dropped by 70%, and a lot of shark species are now threatened with extinction. I mean, that is completely insane. How did we manage to wipe out so many in such a short time? In order to understand why sharks are disappearing, we need to look at human behavior first. Shark products are considered a luxury in many parts of the world, particularly in Asia. So that made me curious and I wanted to see how accessible they really are. So I went to Chinatown in Bangkok to look for myself, and it didn't take very long to find shops selling all kinds of shark fin products. Hello, this shark fin? Yeah. Oh wow.
Soup.
Same? Oh. They're commonly served as soups or dried crackers, and they don't come cheap. Now, after talking to a few locals, I realized it's more than just like a luxury food item. Many people in emerging markets don't necessarily have bad intentions or know about the moral implications, but they simply rely on this trade to survive and feed their families. There's an entire fishing industry which is built around catching sharks just for their fins. And that's where things take a dark turn. You see, shark meat isn't safe for consumption. It is packed with mercury, which makes it effectively toxic for humans. And that's why the majority of the shark actually gets discarded. You see, the fishermen would usually cut off only the fins and then throw the sharks back into the ocean, sometimes leaving them to die. And that's a really brutal and wasteful thing. Another issue is that the global population has increased dramatically, and that generally means more demand for fish. So as a result, you got a lot more fishing boats, more industrial nets, and more sharks being trapped as bycatch. But trust me, you haven't seen the worst of it yet. As a result, ecosystems are destabilized, which leads to a lot of species being wiped out, and the ocean's balance is pushed to the breaking point. But before we can assess the actual damage, we need to understand why sharks are so critical. Before we dive into what happens if we lose shark populations and how we can change our mindset to protect them, I want to give a quick shout out to the amazing team at Artlist for making this video possible. When we talked about this, they basically said, "Hey Eric, make a video about any topic that you think is important." So I said, "Hey, yeah, that's awesome. I got this idea. Can I make a video about sharks?" And they just said yes, which makes me super excited. In case you haven't heard of them, Artlist is an all-in-one creative platform, and they made it possible for me to license the music and a lot of the footage that brought this story to life. If you create videos for the internet, you know how hard it is to get decent underwater footage because it requires a lot of specialized gear that most people simply don't have access to. And you already know how important it is to have the right visuals and the right soundtrack. Artlist makes this entire process seamless because they allow access to all kinds of assets. Their library is massive, the quality is great, and everything you need is in one convenient place. They also just published their vision for 2025, and oh boy, they got some amazing stuff coming up, like a faster and better search experience, generative AI features, and tons of exclusive content. What is awesome, the plans are also really affordable. So for instance, the creator plan is less than $10 US, and it is perfect for YouTube. If you're working on client projects, the Pro plan is the way to go. And if you want everything, that means stock footage, templates, music, and AI voiceovers, there's Artlist Max, which is less than $40. Plus, if you sign up through my affiliate link in the description, you'll get 2 extra months completely free of charge, which is a really solid deal that is hard to beat in my opinion. Definitely check them out, I promise you won't regret it. Now back to the topic. Sharks are apex predators, and they play a really critical role in keeping the ocean in balance. They hunt weaker and sick fish, which keeps populations healthy and prevents certain species from overpopulating. Nature works in a very delicate way, and every ecosystem follows the same rule. If you remove one key element, then everything starts to fall apart. So when the top of the food chain, aka sharks, disappear, prey species like lionfish multiply rapidly and start to overpopulate. And this tends to cause a domino effect. Without larger predators to control their numbers, these fish spread super aggressively. They start eating all of the smaller species that would normally keep the coral reef healthy.
Here's a species of fish destroying the marine ecosystem.
They are able to reproduce at an alarming rate. One adult lionfish can decimate up to 80% of the juvenile naturally occurring fish populations within 5 weeks.
And eventually, even the coral reef itself starts to die and the ecosystem starts to collapse completely. Now, some studies suggest that if this trend continues, The oceans could be nearly empty by 2048. Some people might consider this a bit exaggerated, but if you think about it, if you were snorkeling like 10 years ago and compare it to now, it becomes very obvious that there's a really big difference. Like you see only a fraction of the fish and it starts to feel like a real problem. But here's the part most people don't realize. Over 70% of our planet is covered in water. That means healthy oceans contribute heavily to regulate our climate. They produce oxygen and effectively support billions of people around the world. When shark populations decline, the damage doesn't usually just stay underwater, it spreads everywhere basically. I know it sounds like a disaster, but there is still a way to stop it. And it starts with education, and that was actually the main reason why I wanted to make this video. As someone who's passionate about the ocean for many years now, I think we gotta change the wrong perception that people have. Conservationists are working worldwide to protect habitats, shark tourism is reshaping and becoming more sustainable, and I think it's time to show the world that these creatures are vital, very intelligent, and actually a bit misunderstood. Now luckily most countries are finally banning shark finning and awareness campaigns are becoming more and more common. But all of these efforts need support. And I know it sounds a little bit like a cliche, but it starts with us humans. I mean, you and I can make pretty simple contributions. So for example, maybe don't eat sushi 5 times a week. You can also consume more sustainable fish products or simply tell your friends to spread awareness. The more I researched, the more I think I understand sharks a little bit better, and the more I realize that they are not monsters. I think they are really amazing creatures that we absolutely cannot afford to lose. If you made it all the way to the end, thank you so much for watching. If you liked this video, you might also want to check out this one right here. And with that said, I will catch you in one of the next ones.